It is the Human First AI Marketing Podcast, and I'm your host, Mike Montague at Avenue 9. You can find us at avenue9.com, where we do all things human first for marketing, where that could be strategy, it could be setting up the technology, or it could be storytelling, which is what we're going to talk about this week with Kristen Kent. She is the founder of Evergreen Content Ops. You can find them at evergreencontentops.com because we were both good at marketing. Also, Kristen is on LinkedIn, and she's been doing a lot of like practical human in the loop AI for content systems. And that's, I think, one of the most interesting parts for me, Kristen, is that like, it seems like anytime there's a shortcut, people want to take it. And then maybe they look back and go, maybe the hard part was the part that was adding value. But what's your take on kind of human first?
I think you're right there. I think that we're reaching a point in AI adoption where the shiny new object syndrome is wearing off a little bit. Saw a lot of companies do just what you said and just dive in. Oh my gosh, look what this can do. It can create so much content so quickly. But they forgot what was important when AI wasn't writing content, things like tone and voice and audience connection and content pillars and things like that we in content marketing have been hanging our hat on that hook for years, right? And AI shouldn't have changed that. But for a lot of people, it did. So I'm with you on the human first and human in the loop AI. I think I say it as human-led AI assisted because it is the human, that's you, that's me, who is guiding it rather than just passively accepting output from it. So that's what human in the loop means to me. It means the human's in there the whole time, not just at the beginning or not just at the end.
Yeah, I agree. I put it human first because that also kind of means like, employees first and doing the strategy first and putting your customers first, which is a big part that people miss. But I agree with you. It's also,
when did we stop caring about that, right? Like when did we stop caring about the message and the customer? It seems like AI just created this vacuum of, more. And really, for us as content marketers, less is more, right? Quality is more important than quantity.
A lot of times, yeah. And so I joke, it's human first, but it's also human in the middle and human last and human all the way through.
Human everywhere.
Good strategy there too. And I think like with content, that's the big thing that people miss is that really for the last decade or so, more content has not been the problem. There are millions of videos going up on YouTube, millions of blogs going up every day. Like the world has enough content. That wasn't ever the problem. So the challenge for the last 10 years, I feel like, has been building an audience, connecting with really real human beings, creating content that's good enough to inspire action and stuff, or to be ranked because it's unique or authoritative enough. Like there are really tough challenges to be solved in content. We can use AI to do that, but the more part was not the problem. What do you think is the best way to use AI?
Yeah, I think you've hit on a really good point that more was never the solution, but it was the strategy for a really long time. Yeah. And now we've got companies, and if you think about it in marketing, it also applies to things like training and HR content and employee content or internal comms, things like that. But in terms of marketing, we've got a lot of companies with a ton of content debt, right? They did develop, we're gonna produce a blog every week. This is when humans were writing every word of it, right? And they did that, and they didn't necessarily do it strategically from an audience perspective. So now we've got these sites, and a lot of the people I talk to these days have so much legacy content that they have this content debt that's actually dragging them down. And as AI search changes the way content is surfaced, the search engines and the AI answer engines, they don't know what of that pile of content you have is important. So trimming the fat is really where I think AI can play the biggest role in helping companies get lean again with
Yeah.
content.
I think so too, because what I've found in my career, and you've been doing this about the same amount
Yeah,
of time, is that like people in the public, or at least in small business, seem to be kind of 5 to 10 years behind what's actually happening.
I would
That
agree
more
with that.
content was the problem in the late 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah,
By 2010, we had social media and enough content to not really worry about it. And then
yeah,
it was, audience building, or it was SEO and other stuff up to, maybe 2010, 2015. And then it started changing. And I think that what people haven't realized with AI is AI learns differently than search algorithms.
right,
Search
right.
algorithms was a lot about structure and data, and like kind of getting those backlinks
Hmm.
and setting up one authoritative site and kind of driving everything towards that.
Right, right,
For me, AI now is about kind of one authoritative message, but then distributing that content in as many places as possible, so that humans and AI can learn that message and kind of
right,
remember that one thing you want them to remember about your business. But if
right.
you publish a million different things, nobody knows what to say.
Exactly. And where AI can really help with that too is better than humans is connecting all those dots, right? So one of the tools, one of the ways I use AI in with a new client is internal linking strategies, right? Because it used to be hard to do that. It used to be that if I would work with a client who has 50 legacy blog posts, they've never done an internal link in their lives, they're missing huge opportunity there. And so we would create maps and we would get those processes going, but to retroactively have an internal linking strategy was painful. Like not
Yeah.
anything anybody wanted to do, right? And now AI can help us do that in 5 minutes, really. And I've done it, and it is incredibly effective. And that's one way to use it that doesn't outsource your thinking or outsource your voice. It's a way AI can help us meet those best practices that we know we still need to meet without taking over the writing itself.
Yeah, and I want to get to some AI tools here in a couple of minutes, but I have one more question, which
Mhm.
I found really interesting on your website, because I do the same thing. Is that a lot of people think content, they only think public, like social media content for marketing, and they don't think employee onboarding, like case study content, bottom of the funnel content,
Yeah,
sales content, and pages. There are a lot of other reasons to make content than just like to be found on AEO. And I think a lot of small
absolutely.
businesses miss that too, right?
Yeah, right. And a lot of opportunities for AI to assist in those processes too. I think employee onboarding and training is a perfect example because there are so many small to mid-sized companies usually that have an employee handbook that they just hand over or access on the intranet. um, Here you go, learn this, read this, right? But has it been updated? Does it apply today? Does it include examples from actual employees? Does it? None of those things usually exist, but with AI we can really easily interview, say, the director of compliance about what's most important, and make sure that those messages get into that training. Building training is a whole other AI application that I
Yeah.
don't personally do, but very cool stuff. And I think you've worked with that too. A lot of really cool things. But even just taking an employee handbook and creating real world FAQs out of that content with just a little input from leadership can go a long way in helping employees understand how those policies really mean, what those policies really mean to them. So, to me, organizational content is way more than just marketing. I've spent my career in content marketing, and I've also spent a lot of time in employee training. So maybe that's why I think about it more broadly. But it's any piece of content your company needs to function, right? That includes
Yeah.
help desk information if you're a software company, or client support line content, like all of those things. Now we can streamline all of that. We can check for inconsistencies. We can use AI to synthesize. This is what leadership thinks their employees are saying to their customers. This is what employees are actually um, saying to their customers. Also, big applications in safety. Like if you think about an organization, say a convenience store that has a lot of safety issues that can happen in their store, you give AI a year's worth of incident reports and let it tell you what are really the big hazards and what can we do to mitigate those. So many applications for AI to just
Yeah.
take all this information that we have as an organization and parse it out into usable chunks. And again, I want to stress those uses of AI are super popular and have nothing to do with writing for you, right? Which is where people get a
Right. And
little,
generating
I
stuff.
don't want it to
Yeah.
write for me. I don't want to lose my voice. You don't have to use it that way. There's a lot of other ways to to use it.
Yeah, I call it degenerative AI because it's taking all of that information and
Yes.
boiling it down rather than taking like a small prompt and expanding it out. And
Yeah,
it
I
works so
like
much
that.
better. I'm helping a client right now write a book, and I'm interviewing him twice a week for an hour, and we take those transcripts and turn it into the book chapters in his voice. Or like you said,
That's an
interviewing a
amazing
founder about
application. Yeah.
the employee onboarding process, and like, what do you want them to know about the mission, the vision, the values, like how to do
Right.
their job correctly,
Right.
what are your top or their top priorities
Yeah.
for each role. And we're just walking through each role. One each week we'll
Yeah.
get together for an hour, talk through one, and start at the top with their managers and
That's a
executives, and then
great
work their
application.
way
I
down.
love that. Yeah, I love
um,
that.
Really cool.
It's
Another thing
that
is podcasts
yeah.
that people miss, like the transcripts from
Yeah.
real conversations.
Yes.
You're
Yes.
already making the stuff. You got to leverage it, right?
Yes, and AI can take that transcript and parse out you thought you might have been covering one topic, really you covered 20 in a half an hour or 10, right? And so now you've got a week's worth of social posts out of one podcast episode. That's a great application for it, I think. Absolutely. And the whole synthesis process. So I think a lot of companies, and just throughout my career, there's always been this, wait, but we do it that way, but that department does it that way. And then the leadership's going, wait, none of those are the right way to do it, right? And
Yeah.
so by doing these structured interviews, and then uploading it's got to be a real structured process, but the process is structured, but the interviews themselves are casual, and you're just talking through things. Well, what does this mean to you? What does this look like to you? From
Yeah.
your perspective in sales support, what does it look like to your customers? And then you give AI all of that information, and it's telling you these are the common things, these are the disconnects. This is where our friction is. This is where we can really supply some fixes, right, to our organization. So those are a lot of ways, and I love the book idea too. That what a way to get a founder or someone who wants to write a book to get their thoughts out there without having to worry about it being perfect. We're just having a conversation, and then
Right.
AI helps bring that together. I love that.
Yeah, there's a bunch of that. I would also say speed is just a giant issue. So one of my favorite, tech tools is Whisper Flow, because I can just hit a couple keys on my keyboard and say what I want to write, and
Yeah,
it becomes a lot faster. And reason I brought that up is because I want to ask you about some of your other tools that
sure.
still like let you write the content, but maybe do it faster or better than you could have 5 years ago. And I know everybody's got like an LLM. So, ChatGPT,
Yeah,
Claude, Gemini, Grok, whatever your favorite is. I feel like that's the Swiss Army knife go to.
yeah,
But
yeah.
you mentioned in our pre-interview, um, Google Notebook is one that I think a lot of people snooze on. And
Notebook
that's a really
LM.
cool kind
Yeah,
of, especially
yeah.
tool. Can you tell us how you use that?
Yeah, I like it. It has a specific application for me, but it's I don't think this is their word for it, and it is part of Gemini now. So if you use the Google suite of AI, it's included in there. But it's a like a hallucination free zone for an LLM because it doesn't look outside itself for context. So you're feeding it specific context, and you're telling it, these are my sources. So one use case I had for it was a research project where we were trying to understand some government programs and how they really worked when you've got a situation where a person is needing to apply to several programs. Who does what does what are the different qualifications? I don't want them I don't want my LLM in that case to go find some random blog that talked about that, right? I want to upload the laws, the actual government sourced information, and have it just explain that to me as a layperson. So that's one use case for it. And I'll give you another one that I did just yesterday. So I don't know if you've heard about, well, I'm sure you've heard about like personality um, trait tests assessment you can
Oh
take.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
right.
Right.
So years ago, I did a program called Emergenetics, which is a really cool version of one of
Hmm.
those. So it was 19 years ago that I took that original assessment, and I recently reconnected with the woman I did it with then, who I was working for then, and I'm going to be working with her again. And I said, I want to do it again. I want to see how much I've changed, right? Or what about me has changed, or maybe I haven't. And so I gave Notebook LLM both of those reports, the one from 2007 and the one from just yesterday. And that way it was taking those reports and some background information about emergenetics and giving me a report that showed me what was the same, what changed, and what that means to me going forward as I build my business. And I knew it was only giving me information from those reports. So that's the beauty of
Yeah.
Notebook LLM, Notebook LM, is that it doesn't search outside of itself. So you're not going to get some response that doesn't apply to you. So really good for research, I would say.
Yeah. I also love the little podcast summaries and the videos. The videos are incredible.
Yeah,
They're
yeah,
easy
it can
to
do a lot
watch.
more than what I'm using it
Yeah,
for
and if you need
sure.
to
Yeah,
summarize, like you said, an employee manual or something or
yeah,
others, like it's cool to have a little podcast or course video on it instantly. That's like you said, very accurate from the information.
right. That
It
it's
might
not
not
going to
catch
be pulling
everything
in.
exactly like
Yeah.
you want, but I found if you just kind of generate it a couple of times or give it better
Mhm. Well,
instructions,
but
you can kind
it's
of
not
prompt it
making
towards you.
anything up.
Right.
It's not confusing your procedures with somebody else's procedures. So I think
Yeah.
it's really important in that way for sure.
The other thing you mentioned there, I've done, and I would encourage everybody listening to this to do it as well. I uploaded my like disc profile, my Enneagram, my strengths finders, like over,
Yes.
30, I was in professional development for 15 years.
Yeah.
So I have, probably over 15 different assessments that I could upload and just say, hey, use this to write like me, use this to help me and guide me and coach me, but also like
Absolutely.
learn more about me and what my style is so that you can, be a better AI assistant. And
Right.
any of
And
them will
yeah,
update the custom
very
instructions and stuff for you.
very cool application for that too is as a kind of partner in your personal growth in terms of those assessments. Typically they might not call them weaknesses, but like
Yeah.
if you took all those assessments and created a SWOT analysis on yourself as how you work as a person, how you communicate with clients or network or whatever, um, and have your AI agent or AI assistant recognize those weaknesses and call you on them. Like
Yeah.
I have an AI assistant that I use for sales processes, and she's like, "Look, you're going off on a tangent. We need to stop this. This is you avoiding what the task that's at hand." And I wanted her to be that way. I wanted her to push back on me, and I'm calling her a her, which I know is kind of controversial,
Yeah.
but it's just the way I work. And so having it kind of analyze your own behavior and your own interactions with it is a really cool way to learn about yourself and improve yourself and recognize what your weaknesses are, and instead of sometimes either burying those or finding ways around those, you've got this AI assistant who's going to call you on it and help you improve. Or fine, we're not going to tackle that at all because I don't want to or whatever, but we're
Yeah,
still
this is
going
good
to
too.
learn from it. And we're going to I love asking AI after a big session, what did you learn about me from, the last hour we spent together, and have them not be nice about it, like I really want to hear the truth. So
Yeah, that's funny.
I think
I've
it's
told
fun.
this before, but I had AI roast my book before I published it, and I was like, if somebody hates this, like write the worst possible book review
Oh, I
based
love that. I
on what it
love
is.
that.
And it started, it does the like, and it loads up like several
You're like,
paragraphs. I'm like, oh no,
no.
yeah, I had to get up and walk away, and then I was like, no, I want to know, and it turned out for the best. It
Yeah,
really helped
right,
me like
right,
get the confidence that if somebody writes that, the book wasn't for them. They
right,
don't get it,
right,
right?
right, right.
And it locked it in for me. And same thing with the other stuff that you're saying there too. I used to personify my AI, and I had Jenny, my like nerdy quirky assistant, but I decided not to do that, and I stopped that. Oh gosh, probably like 9 months ago now or something, and really cleaned it up because I found like there was some drifting, and it started getting a little like
Mm,
sycophantic and
yeah.
people pleasing and stuff. And I was like, I actually like ChatGPT better when it was just like that first
When
version that just kind of
when
did
it
what you
wasn't it,
wanted it to
right?
do. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I kind of
And then I
was the
switched to Claude, and
opposite.
I was careful not to
Yeah,
set it up
yeah.
that way
Claude
because a
is a
lot of people
completely
now
different
I
animal.
see senior executives and CEOs, especially in small businesses, going like, well, let's test this with Claude. Or I ran your
Oh
marketing
my
plan
gosh.
through Claude, and he thinks or Claude feels like this is risk. Claude doesn't think anything. Claude doesn't feel anything.
He doesn't
They're
feel
not in
anything.
the
Yeah,
room. Like
yeah.
I feel like I'm gonna have to institute a policy now with all of my clients that like you can't quote Claude. You can say I feel like, because
Right.
Claude's reflecting back what you're putting into it, and it's telling you
Exactly.
what you want to hear. So if you agree with that statement, I want you to say I think this plan is off because, but don't
Yeah.
say Claude knows better
Well,
because it
I
does.
think you're really hitting the nail on the head with a big leadership problem we have with AI right now. I've seen it multiple times where you've got a leader, a founder, or even a manager level who is just sending. I've had it happen to me, sending all this chat GPT output or Claude, it doesn't matter which one it is, like
100
just
pages of work slop.
pages and pages
Yeah.
and pages. And, several months ago, I had to say to somebody, did you read this? Like, what in this do you agree with? And what don't you? I mean, I was taking what that
Yeah.
founder was giving me, putting it back into Claude and saying, find me the common threads here, find the things that contradict each other, because I need to go back and say, none of that was helpful except for these four things, right? But that still doesn't give the
Right.
contractor, the employee, the direction as to what they're supposed to do with it. So AI is not solving a
I
problem
think
for
there's a lot of
founders
that,
there.
but
Yeah,
there's also this, especially you as I as out, side consultants
yeah.
or professional copywriters and creators of like 25 years to say we put your copy through Claude and it suggested we change this is really annoying, for
Annoying.
many reasons.
Employees
One, like
demoralized.
it completely depends on the prompt. Did you say
Yeah,
Claude find what's wrong with it? Because it will. If you say
yeah,
Claude, tell me why this is great, it will also do that. So
yeah,
like I
right.
feel like we're gonna have to have like AI battles. I always say this about like policies. Like whenever there's a corporate policy that I don't like, I just say, well, I have a policy that disagrees with that. So we have a policy
Right.
standoff. And I feel like we're gonna have an AI standoff. Well, my Claude says this is the best version,
I
and your
think
Claude says
so.
that one.
I think so.
Yeah.
And it's one thing for that to happen within a team, but when you've got leadership handing down those kinds of directives, then it's
Yeah.
really demoralizing to employees. It's not productive. It's not increasing efficiencies. It's not getting us to our end goal any faster. In fact, it's
Yeah.
causing confusion and disruption to the process. So that starts at the top. And there's a lot of talk about AI slop on any platform that you're on, and it is everywhere, right? But I like to say slop rolls downhill. I mean, it starts with leadership and what leadership
Yeah.
expects their employees to do with whatever AI tool they're using, where it fits into the process. And if you're getting a directive, if an employee is getting a directive from leadership, just use AI, then you've got this copy post slop, like it's not helping anybody. And the real losers in that is the audience, right? They're not getting what they
I
need. And it's tragic
agree. I mean,
in
we got
some ways.
marketing slop. We have work slop, like those 100
Hmm.
pages of directives, but we
Yes.
also have this new one called trend slop, which is like people asking Claude for the strategy or the vision and stuff of the company, and it's kind of just
Oh,
going with whatever the hottest trend is, or what it feels like you want to hear, and it's not an actual
right.
business strategy that anyone
Yeah.
would follow. And so I feel like there are a ton of challenges, but we've been roasting here for a while. I also want to hear from you. You found some really cool ways to use it. So if you had to just take a couple of minutes and tell us, like, what's the best way to use it, then how do you recommend people think about using it for brainstorming ideas or
Mm.
strategy or production or reviews? How would you recommend we use
I think, at least in the content marketing framework, that the one of the most efficient ways to use it, or effective or valuable ways to use it, is with your legacy content.
it?
And really, like, and I don't know if you've used Claude for Chrome at all yet. That it's fairly new. It's in beta, but it's very effective in saying, okay, look at my 20-year archive of blog posts, or 10, or even 5. That's a lot of blogs, right? Where am I repeating myself? What are my key messages that I'm covering in this blog? And cleaning that up and using AI then to clean it up. But identifying where the content debt is, so that you as a human, as the team, can go through and consolidate, because there's so many pages on people's websites, if we're talking specifically about website content, that aren't serving companies
Yeah.
anymore, right? Just not serving them at all. Another really good application as a writer for me is, I've always hated, and I shouldn't admit this probably publicly, but I've always hated writing case studies. They're hard to write. Not that I'm not up for the challenge, but you've got interviews, you've got what the founder wants, you've got what the project manager thinks, you've got what the customer thinks, all of these different inputs that need to come in. We're always very hard to synthesize, right?
Yeah.
And AI is such a powerful tool in doing exactly that. And not just stopping there, but creating a case study piece of content that serves the site and the site owner from an SEO perspective. So what better than a case study to have interlinking strategies and internal linking strategies and tying back to content pillars and things like that. So I think that kind of synthesis, that analysis and synthesis, is far more powerful way to use AI than to have AI write something. And that's really the farthest down on my list on how it should be used in content.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and it's more, help me find my holes, or help me find my redundancies.
I
And
think there
that's
is
fine.
also something to be said at the beginning of the process of, like, helping you get off the blank page.
Oh,
So help me
sure, sure.
brainstorm
Yeah,
ideas for this, or titles for this,
yeah.
or help me outline this, and ask me questions about this topic so
Oh,
that
that
I can get
people
me thinking. Like, a lot of people
who
just
are
work on the
not
wrong
using
end of the
that
problem.
are really missing out. That ask me questions part of the prompt can be huge. And in terms of brainstorming, it can go so much further than that, where you can say, this is what my competition is talking about. Look at
Yeah.
their blog, parse the key topics from their blog, compare it to my key messages that I've defined as a human. I've defined what my core messages are, and tell me where we overlap and where I have an opportunity to stand out from this competition. So I think those those types of tasks that require input of a lot of information, that's hard for us to do, even getting it, but then reading it all and draw line, connecting the dots between it all. That's where AI really has its value in content for me.
All right, now we're gonna end with the fun one. Where do you think like all this plays out? If you had to predict into the future, quite a ways,
Hmm.
let's say like 30 years in the future, where how do you think it all plays out? Does AI eventually get that good that it replaces most writers? Are we all on the beach with our universal basic income, or are there some
Maybe.
problems that just AI is not meant to solve, or there's some sort of art to this that isn't a science that can be distilled?
I'm
What do you
I'm
think?
going to take an optimistic road on that one, and I think that there are creative and judgment and um, understanding of the customer that
Hmm.
AI really won't be able to get to. Now, of course, I'm not an AI developer, so maybe it is already there, but I really believe that AI is never going to know whether the message lands, right? AI
Hmm.
is never going to know whether the campaign was successful. It takes us to apply our good judgment to both the metrics and the the measurement. And I don't know, like you could feed AI a ton of stuff and it could tell you metric wise whether something landed, but it's not going to tell you whether your customer understands your message better now than they did before. That's still human judgment. And creativity, yeah, we can use AI to kind of break through the blank page and that sort of thing, but we can't let it make those decisions. Like, yeah, you can give me a ton of decisions, give me a ton of options, but it's still got to be a human making those decisions. So I don't know. Given how far it's come in the last 5 years, I'm probably being overly optimistic. But I think we're always going to have a place as writers, as creatives in general, that there's going to become more and more pushback against it. I think too,
Yeah.
and we need to, those of us who are using it and are kind of pro AI but not pro outsourcing everything,
Right.
those of us who are sitting here in the middle really have a responsibility to make sure that it does stay human led, because could it take over? Yeah, that's why it's always good to say please and thank you when you're working with your AI agent. But
Yeah, I think
I
so
think we'll
too.
always have a place.
But I think there are limits to the LLMs and the way we're doing it now with the predictive transformers. I think they're really good at repetitive tasks and they're really bad at novelty and seeing something the first
Exactly.
time.
Right.
And surprisingly, humans are very good at that. We can kind of apply previous context to new problems
Yeah,
and be
right.
creative or solve things that we encounter much better.
It's
And
the humans with
it's
the
fun.
kind of instinct to say, "Yeah, but," or "What
Right.
about
When to
that?"
break the
And
rules
yeah,
is a
right.
big one for
And
sure.
I think you can have those kinds of interactions with AI, but they're only effective if the human is leading that conversation, in my
You bet. We've been talking with Kristen Kent, founder of Evergreen Content Ops at evergreencontentops.com. You can also find Kristen Kent on LinkedIn and connect with her there. Kristen, the last question for you
yeah.
is how can you help us or how can we help you?
I just really appreciate this opportunity to talk my head off for an hour or whatever it's been, Mike. And you and I have a lot in common, I think, in the way we approach AI. So I want to continue to follow what you're doing and interested in how you're handling things with clients and your projects. And I'm happy to do the same for
Yeah.
you if there's anything I can do for you.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that. Thanks for being on the show and sharing your expertise and thoughts with us. I found it really valuable too. Hopefully everybody else did.
Yeah,
And
thank
if
you.
you're looking for help from me, you can go to avenue9.com. As I mentioned, there's three things there: marketing strategy, the systems, the technology, and singing it all together, and the storytelling. If you want to get good at using AI the way we've been talking about today, human led, but AI assisted, reach out to me or Kristen and we'll give you help.
All right.
Until next time, good luck. Keep going.